Welcome to another episode of Daily Jim. The other day, somebody who I'm mentoring told me, Jim, I'm currently trying to coach a manager of a company, and sometimes he comes to me and asks for advice on management-related issues, but I myself don't have so much management experience. So many times I feel I can't give him proper advice because I haven't experienced it myself before, and I feel I'm lacking the knowledge or expertise to really help him. What do you advise I do? I think we've all been in this situation ourselves, even though it might not have been as in the role of mentor or coach, but even as a colleague or superior or subordinate, we've all come across these situations in our workplace where somebody came to us and asked us, what do you think? And depending on the importance of the task at hand for that person, but also for ourselves, we start feeling more courageous or less courageous to actually give advice. The same with our confidence. It starts taking a hit the more we feel we haven't experienced it ourselves before, or the more we feel that whatever advice we give to that person, the consequences of that advice will come back to us. But when I think about it in the situation of being a good friend or being a good family member, all of a sudden we're willing to give our opinion and advice to anybody who asks for it because the feeling of being a good friend or a good family member outweighs whatever consequences come out of it. So in today's video, I want to focus on the advice I gave to my mentee, because I think it applies to many of us as well. The first point is that it's very unlikely that we will have experienced exactly the same situation as the person who asks us for advice. So our goal is not so much to place ourselves in their shoes, even though that makes it a lot simpler, but more so, what have I experienced in my own life that can somehow relate to whatever situation that person is into? And what lessons did I draw from there that I can then turn into advice? Sure enough, even in my mentee's case, he hasn't had much management experience, but he's for sure had communication with many different people throughout his life. And many points that are about management are not so much about what work somebody needs to do, but about how I communicate with that person. How do I motivate that person via my communication skills? How do I make it clear what needs to get done and how to get it done, which all again comes back to communication. So even if you haven't managed people, if you're able to communicate well, many of the problems that a manager is facing, you can advise on because you have those communication skills. So what I told my mentee was, don't focus so much on the expertise or the knowledge because you surely have it, but think more about what comes before that and what comes after that. The point before that is, don't listen so much to whatever the person says is the issue, because many times what they say is the issue is simply an observation of the consequence. So when you're trying to advise somebody, think about what is the cause that led to this outcome, and try to tackle that cause instead of the outcome. Because what you will realize more often than not is that tackling the cause is much easier than the consequence. And also that the number of causes to something are much more finite than the number of consequences. Imagine this. If I try to manage somebody in the Netherlands and I communicate in a certain way and the outcome is very good, but then I take that same kind of management style or process in Japan, it might not work that way because culturally it's just different. So even though the advice I thought in the past would have been good, the cause of what I tried to do of getting someone to do the work is the same. The outcome is very different. But from there, I can still see which kind of ways can work based on that cause. But if I only focus on the outcome, I would simply say like this way it doesn't work. So think about what are the underlying causes and try to address those and try to see how that relates to something that you've experienced in the past, because generally that's all you can really base it on. Then the knowledge you already have, and then finally it comes to how do I communicate with the person? When you're communicating with somebody and trying to give them advice, you're trying to establish two things. One is authority, or making the other people feel like you know what you're talking about, that they can really trust your judgment. And the second thing is trying to build some kind of relationship with that person, even if it's just for that certain moment. The way I try to do it is, if I know what situation that person is in and what he's trying to solve, again, I try to think, what are the underlying causes and what kind of situation in my life did I experience that is similar to him, or what kind of story do I know from somebody I heard that I heard about that I can use to talk with this person. And I will try to use that story of this was the situation for me, this is how I dealt with it, and this was my outcome, to tell that to the person and make the person think by themselves. That situation Jim described to me just now is very similar to what I'm trying to solve. And since he used this method, maybe it's something that I can use in my own way as well. If you manage to do this over and over, the person will not only feel like they have a certain relationship with you, or that your situation is relatable to them, but also that you're an authority on the situation, on this particular topic. Even though you haven't experienced exactly the same, you're able to package it in such a way that the person will perceive it to be that way. That's my advice in terms of giving advice or coaching or mentoring somebody. I hope it was useful to you. That's all for today's video. I'll be back with another one tomorrow, and have a nice day, everybody.